بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن سهلا إذا شئت آمين. Again. So before we get started, just one correction I need to make from the previous class is that we're discussing the which bab is takathur. For example, in the ayah of where this is coming up from is al-hakum al-takathur. So at-takathur is not on bab mufa'ala, because that would be kathara yukathiru mukatharatan, whatever. And that's not the word that's here. This is تفاعل تفاعل يتفاعل تفاعلا as opposed to فاعل يفاعل مفاعلة. So I don't know why. I remember when I had asked this question, someone said mufa'ala, and then I was like, no. And then I was like, oh yeah, he is right. I don't know. It slipped my mind there as well, so I apologize for that. But this is Bab number 6, as we know it from Hansler. Where تفاعل يتفاعل تفاعلا. So تكاثر يتكاثر تكاثرا. Okay, so our review is starting from it is starting from Al-Hakim al-Takathur technically, but we had discussed one thing in Surat al-Qari'ah, which I had mentioned from Mufti Shafi's work, Ma'arif al-Quran. He discusses an ishkal and some jawabs and some more details regarding what exactly is the mizan, the wazn, all these sorts of different things. I seem to have X'd out the PDF, so let me just see if I could recall the discussion. But it was mainly that a lot of the narrations, they mention how the a'mal will be weighed, and of course that's something that we believe in with darura. That's something that is has been narrated through tawatur. Assalamu alaikum, Sauban. No one was in the call, but I had gotten started already, so I'm just going through the review right now. So you didn't miss much. You good. Okay, so what I was saying was that, but basically the review is that, just getting started, is that in Surah Al-Qari'ah we had one discussion that Mufti Shafi brings up, which is that he brings sort of some more details regarding the mizan and the wazan about the weighing of the deeds on the day of judgment and stuff. What I was mentioning right now is that this is something that is established through multiple ayat of the Quran and of course through tawatur of the qadr mushtarak from the ahadith of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. This is something that's just ma'aloom min ad-deen, and this is something that of course that we believe in and we do not deny. Okay, that being said, some of the details with that, maybe one ishkal that a person can make is that, well, a'mal are, they don't have physical bodies, they don't have physical forms. How is it possible to weigh them? Well, Allah Ta'ala could do as He wills. If He chooses to give it a body, He can give like salah or fasting a body, and of course He could have them weighed. That's not something that's that's not something that's rationally impossible. And so, of course, Allah Ta'ala can do it. Another ishkal was that how many times will the a'mal be weighed? So there, He mentioned the opinion that most likely it's probably two times. The first weighing will be to separate the believers from the disbelievers, and the second weighing to see that, hey, how high of a level of Jannah is an individual going to get into, or does a person need to spend some time in the fire to pay for his sins and then be admitted entrance into Jannah. Was there? I X'd out the PDF for some reason, which had Mufti Shafi's the Ma'arif al-Quran on it. So I'm just trying to remember if there was anything else that we discussed from him. But I think that was it. Inshallah. Okay. Anyways, Al-Hakum al-Takathur. That's where we're starting our review from. And what I had mentioned was, yeah, go ahead. Yeah. So no. So that's good what you just brought up. So Bajuri on his commentary of the Jawhara, he says fatuzan al-kutub aw al-a'yan. And then so that's the matan of the Jawhara. So in this line, he mentioned that there is ikhtilaf with the ulama as to whether the a'mal, what you're saying is one opinion. I'm mentioning the other opinion is that are simply the a'mal going to be in there in the books written down, like what happened, what took place, what the details were, time, place, all those sorts of different things. And for example, in the hadith that we read in the last class about for what was it? Like the person has 99 scrolls of like these big black books of deeds that are just if you were just unravel them, then they would just be as far as long as the eye could see, right? So that's one thing. So that hadith it shows that it gives the impression that the amal are in a book form. The other opinion, which I was mentioning, that which was that there is ikhtilaf, is that they have a literal physical appearance of whatever Allah Ta'ala decides that the amal should look like. Does that make sense? Maybe I misunderstood the question. Yeah. So that's the ikhtilaf that he makes ishara to over here. I'm looking at it right. I don't think we need to go through the whole thing, but yeah. So in that hadith that I had mentioned, like for example, even the kalima la ilaha illallah is written on a piece of paper, but perhaps Allah Taala could give that or other a'mal, whether it be fasting, giving charity, all these sorts of different things. He can give them not just actually have them be written on a piece of paper, but give the give the actions a form themselves. So that's the ikhtilaf that's present. Okay. Um, okay, one thing that I had mentioned earlier that you weren't there for was I had made a mistake last class regarding what sigha this word takathur is on. So we had said that it's on bab mufa'ala, and that is not correct. I think one of the someone else had when I had asked the question what bab is this on, like what sigha is it? Someone said mufa'ala, and then I was like I had like a brain fart basically, and then I was thinking about it, and I was like, yeah, it's not mufa'ala, dude. So bab mufa'ala is bab number three, as is in Hansware, right? That we commonly use. So that's fa'ala yufa'ilu mufa'alatan. So now, if we were to take this kath thara from takasur, if so fa'ala yufa'ilu mufa'alatan, that'll be kathara yukathiru mukatharatan. That's not the word over here. Okay, so and similarly, even in amma yatasa'alun, right? So now the verb form that is on, it's on tafa'ul, not mufa'ala. So tafa'ul is tafa'ala yatafa'alu tafa'ulan. So that makes sense. Takathara yatakatharu takathuran, which is the verb over here as we see. Alhaakum takathuru. Okay. So, and then, of course, we say takathuran mansub, and then over here it's the fa'il of the fi'il alhaakum takathur. Alha shagalakum. So, takathur, did that make sense, Thoban? This, yeah. Okay, cool. So, alhaakum takathur. So, this need of mutual competition that people keep having within the dunya has busied them, has distracted them. Alhaakum takathur. The Takathur has distracted you all. حتى زرتم المقابر. To the extent that you and there's a couple of different opinions as to this حتى زرتم المقابر, to the extent حتى زرتم المقابر that you'll even visit the graveyards and you'll start bragging about which dead famous dead people are in your lineage. Or it could mean that to the extent you'll only be doing this, you'll only be distracted by this worldly competition until you yourselves are being buried in your graves. كلا سوف تعلمون. كلا, no, this so كلا حرف الردع, it's negating the previous idea and asserting a new one. So over here, Allah Ta'ala is saying that that's of course wrong. Kalla, this whole concept, this whole attitude, this culture of this takathur, that's you have to get rid of that. So ta'alamun, and most surely you shall soon know. ثم كلا سوف تعلمون. So he mentions over here that this first one is for سوف تعلمون في قبوركم, that you'll understand the reality of what this worldly life was about, and of course of the hereafter, once you um once you're in your graves. ثم كلا سوف تعلمون. ثم كلا سوف تعلمون. Some more تأكيد that you'll understand it. You'll come to know, you'll come to a better understanding, especially on the day of judgment. So the first one he says could be referring to the qabr, and this ayah number 4, ثم كلا سوف تعلمون, could be referring to on the day of judgment. كلا لو تعلمون علم اليقين. What is the second كلا for? حقا. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, حقا, for sure. So okay, the first two kallas in ayahs 3 and 4 to do like negate the previous idea. That's what the kalla is for. And then it's asserting the new one that surely you'll soon know that your whole takathur business was just a waste of time and a waste of your time and energy and all that stuff. Now, kalla over here, I number 5, it's in the ma'na of haqqan. Most surely, لو تعلمون علم اليقين. If you had, if you understood in a, if you had a certain understanding, how does he translate it? كلا لو تعلمون علم اليقين. Most surely, no indeed, if only you could know now the knowledge of the utmost certainty. لترون الجحيم. لترون الجحيم, this lam is the lam that's brought for the Jawab al-Qasam. I think I had spent a few minutes explaining this one, but this lam is not connected to this shart. لو تعلمون علم اليقين لترون الجحيم. It's not connected to that. This is lam, which is a Jawab of a Qasam, and the Qasam is mahdhuf. So it's Wallahi لترون الجحيم. I remember actually the reason I emphasize this, I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but because this is something that Mulana Yusuf had like really he like questioned us on. He was just like making sure that we got it in our heads. So he said that I forgot exactly who when he was in Turkey, I believe. He spent I forget I don't know how long, maybe a couple of days, weeks, and he was with Sheikh Muhammad Awama. So then I think Sheikh Awama had asked him, what is this lamb for? Like where's the qasam? And then him and like someone else, they were just like mad confused or something. So then that's why he shared that story with us too. Hopefully I'm recalling it correctly. ثم لترونها عين اليقين, eye number 7. Again, you shall most surely see it with the eye of certainty. ثم لتسألن يومئذ عن النعيم. Then most surely you shall be asked on that day regarding all the different delights and joys of your life. عن النعيم, عن النعم, upon the different blessings that Allah Ta'ala gave you. Let me see if I missed anything. Yeah, so he says, والصواب العموم في كل ما يتلذذ به قال رسول الله صلى الله. Okay, yeah, so yeah, so the anin na'im is very general, so it's not being like any specific ni'mah as some of the commentators have said, but he's saying that because it's very general, it applies to all the different blessings that Allah Ta'ala gave an individual. Surah Al-Asr, short surah, wal Asr, Allah Ta'ala takes a qasam, wal Asri, by Asr. Asr, 3 opinions. He says ad-dahru, like by time itself, the concept of time. It could be the waqtul asr, not the salah itself necessarily, but that's a third opinion. The second opinion is like the time of the day, that when the sun is getting close to sunset, or it could be the actual salatul asr. He mentions it. Jalalain actually mentions it in the order I just said right now. Ibn Juzay, he says it in the opposite order, which I think is, I'm wondering why he does that. Usually, what happens, you bring the strongest one first, and then you work, and then you go weaker, 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 right? So that's what Jalalain does here. He brings ad-dahr, he brings the time of Asr, and then he says Salat al-Asr, and then he brings the opposite. So that's something I need to figure out as to why is he doing that? With which one? Yeah, anyways. Okay, so what do these 3 things have in common? It's that innal insana lafi khusr, that indeed all of man, the jins of mankind, lafi khusrin, is in a great loss. Fi tijaratihi, as he says. He's having khusran is like what you would say as like a businessman. Like I've experienced loss in my business this year. I had a initial investment capital, and that capital it has diminished. So similarly, the greatest capital that every single man, woman, child has is what? It's their lifespan. It's their time. The limited moments, the limited breaths that they have that on the on Earth. That's their biggest capital. You know, if a person has just a weird example, but like if you just randomly won like $10 million, or you just got $10 million, but someone puts a gun to your head, like let me get all of it, you're gonna hand it over. No one's gonna, you know, you're not gonna have to think about it twice. You're definitely gonna hand over all the money. Why? Because you understand that the time I have, my life, my Any time that I have on this earth is much more valuable than anything else. So what is Allah Ta'ala saying? Inna al-insana lafi khusrin. Isn't it great loss? Why? Because every second that goes by, we never, never, ever get it back. What does this have to do with the qasam that was taken? As I said, wal asr, it's showing that the day is ending. Similarly, our day will end too. Inna al-insana lafi khusr. إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات استثناء متصل except for those people from mankind, except for إن الإنسان إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات, those individuals who believe in Allah Ta'ala and they do righteous actions. وتواصوا بالحق, he mentioned something that I really wanted to share with you guys. I don't think I mentioned this last time. وتواصوا بالحق, and they advise each other, they keep encouraging each other towards upholding the truth بالحق. وتواصوا بالصبر, and practicing patience. I'm forgetting the Arabic terminology, but something that's very commonly said is that sabr could be three things. As-sabr ala ta'a. I think this is, hopefully I'm using this the right phraseology. That as-sabr ala ta'a. I don't think I mentioned this last time. That sabr could, normally when we think of sabr, we think of sabr عند البلاء. Sabr عند البلاء. Sabr عند العذاب, or something like that. That whenever something bad happens to you, remain patient. Right? That's how we normally think of it, but it could be two other things as well. Sabr ala ta'a, that's the second one. That a person has to have a certain amount of sabr, a certain amount of patience, a certain amount of istiqama, of being just punctual and disciplined in order to keep doing good deeds, right? Um, Making sure that you're praying your 5 times a day, making sure that you're reading your daily Quran, making sure you're doing this amount of adhkar, or whatever else, making sure you're doing your mutala, your takrar, all these different things that requires a certain amount of discipline and self-discipline and all those sort of things, which is a type of sabr. That's the second one. Sabr in al bala, sabr ala ta'a, in sabr um ala what is it? Anil ma'asiyah, sabr anil ma'asiyah. That having sabr from not committing sins that a person might want to commit. So those are the three sabrs that could be understood over here. What he said, which I found fascinating, was كرر الفعل. So the فعل وتواصل is brought twice. لاختلاف المفعولين, because there's two different مفعوls. وتواصل بالحق, that's the بالحق, like the idea of just encouraging each other to do good and encouraging each other to be patient. That's two different مفعوls. وتخصيص هذا التواصي بالذكر مع اندراجه تحت التواصي بالحق. Now تواصل بالصبر technically falls under وتواصل بالصبر technically falls under وتواصل بالحق, right? So why is it being mentioned specifically? لإبراز كمال الاعتناء به, is to show its importance, of course. أو لأن الأول عبارة عن رتبة العبادة التي هي فعل ما يرضى به الله تعالى. Or it could be to show that sabr means that, or sorry, but tawasul bil haq is to show that a certain level of being pleased with what Allah Ta'ala, or sorry, so watawasa bil haqq is showing your pleasure with what Allah Ta'ala has, commanded you to do, and Allah Ta'ala has prohibited you to do, so that you're showing your pleasure in all the things of following the Sharia, basically. Watawasa bil haqq, you're following the truth, meaning you're following all of His commandments, and you're staying away from all the things that He's prohibited. So that's one aspect. وتواصوا بالصبر والثاني عبارة عن رتبة العبودية التي هي الرضا بما فعل الله. And وتواصوا بالحق. So the first one was showing your obedience by following the Sharia, all of its commandments and prohibitions. Watawasaw bis sabr is showing that you are completely fine with what Allah Ta'ala is doing to you that's out of your control. Both the zahiran and batinan. And he goes on, he explains it a little bit more, but we can suffice with that. So the first one is you're willfully acting upon the commandments of the Sharia, and the watawasaw bis sabr is that all the things that you don't have control over, that Allah Ta'ala of course has control over, you're also pleased with that as well. Okay. That's والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. Okay. Surat al-Humazah. This is where we start with our new stuff for today. ويل لكل. Okay, let me Mufti. Like I said, I always skip over Mufti Saab's nice. He doesn't actually have one over here. Anyways, ويل لكل همزة لمزة. Okay, now these are some words which have quite a few different meanings. Wailun likulli wailun. He says wailun is harfu. What do you say? It's to show like displeasure. Woe, as we normally translate it, WOE. Kalimatu azab, like may destruction befall upon you. Wailun or wailun, may there be like destruction that befalls upon likulli humazatin lumaza, for all these people who are engaged in humaza and lumaza, which we'll discuss in a minute. Or wail, he says, oh wadin fi jahannam, or it is a specific valley in Jahannam, like a specific place in Jahannam. So this waylun, may adab befall upon these all of these people who engage in humaza lumaza, or it's may the people of humaza lumaza be in that specific valley of Jahannam. What is humaza lumaza? Let's see. ويل لكل همزة لمزة وهو على الجملة الذي يعيب الناس ويأكل أعراضهم. So همزة اللمزة very very similar. A lot of the definitions that we'll be going through are interchangeable, I guess you could say. He mentions one, two, three, four, five, six. Yeah. And they're very similar in meaning, which is what? It's these people that backbite. Either, well, backbiting, I mean, by definition, it's when when the person that you're talking bad about is not with you, right? Or it could be just people that say those sorts of things even to another, to the person's face. And they love الذي يعيب الناس. They love blaming people and pointing out the faults in people and just making fun of people. ويأكل أعراضهم, and they love, he says, eating their honor. Okay, eating their honor, he says. So yani just trashing them and just bringing their reputation down amongst people. واشتقاقه من الهمز واللمز وصيغة فعل للمبالغة. So this همزة نمزة, this فعل that is on this صيغة is for مبالغة. اختلف في الفرق بين الكلمتين. Now there's, like I said, a lot of difference between, what is the difference between همزة لمزة. He says الهمزة في الحضور واللمز في الغيبة. That humaz is for when you're saying it straight up to the person's face, that you want the people around you to just also like look down upon the person and not respect the person. So hums is for, I don't know, what is it, hums. Let me check that out real quick. Humus. Hams, yeah, he says hams and lams, I'm assuming. Yeah, that sounds about right too. Okay, hams. Okay, so hams is in, like the person's with you and you're still talking bad to them, while lams is backbiting. Or the other opinion is that it's the opposite. That lams is in their face, hams is behind their back. قيل الهمز باليد والعين واللمس باللسان. Another opinion is that hams is, although you're not saying something, but you kind of like, someone walks by and you kind of just, you give them like that, like a head nod, or you make ishara with your eyes that you're trying to tell your friends, like, hey, look at that, look how weird that guy is, look how funny he walks, or whatever. And lam specifically is actually saying something. وقيل هما سواء, that they're the exact same thing. That's the fourth opinion. ونزل oh, actually he just mentions four opinions. This is a separate thing. So those are the four opinions. Okay. ونزلت سورة في الأخنس بن شريق لأنه كان كثير الوقيعة في الناس. So أخنس بن شريق, he mentions here that it's specifically revealed about him because he was someone who was constantly engaging in this lams and hams, specifically against Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Muslims. So Akhnas bin Shariq. In Jalalain, he mentions نزلت في من يغتاب النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم والمؤمنين كأمية بن خلف والوليد بن المغيرة. That, and he says it over here too. وقيل في أمية بن خلف والوليد بن المغيرة. So these are another two people, of course, enemies of Islam who were just trying to constantly um, just bash on the Muslims, just try to take hits at them in any way, shape, or form. So those are the three people specifically mentioned: Akhnas bin Shariq, Umayyah ibn Khalaf, and Al-Walid ibn Mughira. Um, did I ever send a PDF of this book on the WhatsApp group at the seal?
I'm not sure what's up.
All right, let me just I'll double check after this, and then maybe because I feel like that's just like a lot of writing. So just in case you guys miss anything, then you guys could just look at it, inshallah, yourselves. ولفظها مع ذلك على العموم في كل من اتصف بهذه الصفات. So now, of course, let's say it's specifically Akhnas bin Shariq. Now, is this ayah only saying وَيْلٌ لِي أخنس بن شريق لهمزه ولمزه? No, of course not. It's anyone who has these qualities. So that just because these people are specifically being mentioned, that his eyes was revealed about, that doesn't mean it can't apply to anyone else. May Allah Ta'ala save us from these amal. Okay, ويل لكل همزة لمزة الذي جمع مالا وعددا. الذي جمع مالا وعددا. Over here in a different قراءة. Ibn Amir وحمزة وعلي. Okay, the one who gathers a lot of money. He gathers his wealth and he وعدده جمع, right? He does jama of it. He tries to amass hordes of wealth. وعدده عدد, over here he says أحصاه وجعله عدة لحوادث الدهر. Someone who's, you could say عدده, he's like literally sitting there counting it. He's trying to figure out the number. He's just sitting there. He just keeps rolling his. He just keeps, you know how people do the with their cash. They just keep flipping through it, trying to, or like taking pictures of it and posting it and stuff like that. The other opinion, أحصاه وجعله عدة لحوادث الدهر. Okay, we could skip that one. So yeah, someone who just keeps counting their money just to either just because it makes himself feel better or just to show it off and stuff. يحسب يحسب أن ماله أخلده. يحسب أن ماله أخلده. Then another again a different قراءة يحسب. So يحسب أن ماله أخلده. يحسب, he believes, he thinks. لجهله, he mentioned, due to his ignorance, أن ماله, that surely his wealth أخلده, أي يخلده, that it will immortalize him. Like I always say خالدين فيها, خالد, خاف لام دال, it'll make him last forever, so it'll immortalize him. So of course جعله خالدا لا يموت, so he thinks that his wealth will immortalize him. عدده what did it say? يظن بفرط جهله واغتراره أن ماله يخلده في الدنيا, that it'll immortalize him in this world. يظن, وقيل يظن أن ماله يوصله إلى دار الخلد, or he thinks that because he has a lot of wealth, that this means that he will reach the darul khuld, that he'll reach, that this is a sign, and we discussed this earlier, that in, I believe it was what, Surat al-Fajr, the ayah, فأما الإنسان إذا لا ما ابتلاه رب ما ابتلاه ربه فأكرمه ونعمه فيقول ربي أكرمن. The person who is tested with wealth and he thinks that as Allah, I have this wealth and it shows that Allah Ta'ala is pleased with me and that Allah Ta'ala loves me and Allah Ta'ala this, that. No, not necessarily, right? فيظن أن ماله يوصله إلى دار الخلد كلا ردع عليه فيما ظنه. That كلا, like we said, حرف الردع is negating this idea. Of course, this just because he has money, he has a lot of money, he's able to count it just over and over and over again, he never runs out. That does not كلا. That doesn't mean that he's anything special. لا ينبذن في الحطمة. Lam again to show that this is a jawab to a hidden qasam. That this is a jawab to a hidden qasam. هذا جواب قسم محذوف. So والله لينبذن في الحطمة. Like most surely that he shall be flung. نبذ, to just fling, to just throw. لينبذن, noon for تأكيد, that right? لينبذن في الحطمة. He'll be thrown, flung into the حطمة. What is the حطمة? والحطمة هي جهنم. Okay, it's another name for جهنم. وإنما سميت حطمة لأنها تحطم ما يلقي فيها تلتهبه. وقد عظمها بقوله وما أدراك, ثم فسرها بأنها نار الله الموقدة. So الحطمة, وما أدراك ما الحطمة, what can make you understand what is the حطمة? نار الله الموقدة, أي هي نار الله. Okay, this is another question that Muasab had asked us, and none of us knew the answer, and it was really, really embarrassing. So that's something that just keeps sticking in my head whenever I read this surah. One sec. حطم يحطم. حطم يحطم means to completely shatter, smash, wreck, demolish. So that's where the ishtiqaq of this word, and that's what Jahannam has been called, which makes sense. وما أدراك ما الحطمة? Again, to show his ta'zeem, like Allah Ta'ala is prompting, like using this rhetorical device to build an interest in the listener. That وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الْحُطَمَةُ. Do you really understand what this hutama is? هي نار الله. What is it? نار الله الموقدة. أي هي نار الله الموقدة. نار الله, the khabar, and then the mubtada be mahduf. الموقدة. What is it? مسرعة, I believe. مسعيرة or مسعرة, whatever. That it's burning. Okay, it's lit up. It's on fire. هي التي تطلع على الأفئدة. Okay. تطلع, you guys know a word from this? طالع يطالع مطالعة. You right? You look over, right? You look at it. So تطلع, it creeps over. This هي نار الله الموقدة. It's the burning fire of Allah Ta'ala. التي, this is a description of the fire. It's going to be looking over and just peering over and completely taking over. على الأفئدة, over the chest, over the hearts. Okay, so now Mufti Shafi. Oh, I haven't even looked at Mufti stuff right now. هي تطلع على الأفئدة. In other words, the fire of hell will reach their hearts. The basic property of fire is to burn every particle of the things that fall into it. When people are put into the hellfire, it will devour every limb and organ of the body until it reaches their heart, but the person will not die. This characteristic of the hellfire is especially highlighted in the verse because the fire of this world kills the person even before reaching the heart. Right? It goes like how. Who knows how long does a person have to be on fire before they die? But like it's well before it reaches anywhere like near the heart, right? The fire of hell, on the other hand, will reach the heart in the state of life, and man will experience the torture of the burning of the heart while alive. May Allah Ta'ala save us. التي تطلع على الأفئدة إنها عليهم مؤصدة. موصدة بالهمز وبالواو بدلها مطبقة. We say over here إنها إنها عليهم مؤصدة, that indeed upon them it shall descend and trammel them. It shall completely take over them. It shall just encompass them. مؤصدة, overcome and encompass them. عليهم مؤصدة في عمد ممددة. في عمد ممددة في عمود ممددة. بضم الحرفين أو وبفتحهما. In ever extending pillars. عمد or عمود, coming from umud or imad, is means pillars. So mumaddada, like when you do mud of something, like we say, like we tell our hifz kids, do the mud, right? Make sure you do the mud and stretch it for 4 alifs or whatever. Madda yamuddu, to completely stretch something out. Mumaddada, something that's been very, very stretched out. So ever extending pillars. He mentions two opinions as to what this is connected to, and without going into like the key part of it, but basically it's saying, if I understood correctly, أن أبواب جهنم أغلقت عليهم. The doors of Jahannam will be closed and they'll be fortified. They'll be fortified, sorry, um, by these ever extending pillars that they won't ever be opened. Like yani, the pillars are blocking it, if you want to like think about it like that. Um, والآخر أنهم موثوقون مغلولون في العمد, that these people will be tied to these pillars. Yani, they won't ever be able to, so the two different, from what I understand, what I was able to pull out from this is that in the second opinion that I just mentioned, that they'll be tied to these pillars. If a person's in jail, and let's say, or like a person's in, um, like in the interrogation room, you know how they handcuff the person underneath the table, right? They have like the bar, and they're able to, that way the person can sit, but they can't like escape or something. So now, technically, like if a person skill, there is a possibility that they can get out of their handcuffs, and they can make a run for it. So that Allah Taala is saying is not going to happen. If you take the first opinion, that the pillars are going to be, these ever extending pillars are in front of the doors and you can never come out. Well, if you think about it in this perspective too, is that okay? So you can't break out of Jahannam. You can't break it. You enter a room, and the normal way to get out of the room is you use the door. Okay, well in Jahannam you can't use the door. The door is being covered. Now the other possibility is that you leave the room not using the door. You somehow you crack a hole in the wall. You or you dig yourself out of the room, and basically you make yourself a new door. So now Allah Taala is also saying that that possibility is closed as well because you have these ever extending pillars that you're never going to be able to climb out of. Okay, so from both aspects is that you're not going to be able to break free and make a run for it, nor are you going to be able to leave this room, Jahannam in our example, um, through other means. Okay, Surah al-Fil. Okay, so that was Surah al-Lumazah. Humazah. Surah al-Fil. Surah al-Fil Makkiyah, خمس ayat. It's five Makki surah with 5 verses. Do you guys want the short version or the long version for the Sabun Nuzul? Let me just make mention of it, and then if you guys, I'm sure you guys are familiar with this story. Just like how a lot of people they know that story of the boy and the king for Surah Buruj, right? Um, this story, this qissa, this incident is also something that we learn in like our Sunday schools or like maktab and stuff. Is that about how the whole Abraha he came from Yemen and or Sana'a or whatever the specific Bil Yemen he says over here, and he's like he wanted people to he wanted his town his empire to be like the new Makkah. So he built like his own Kaaba that was all pretty and stuff. And then someone came and desecrated in it. So then he's like, oh, that's not gonna fly. So you try to come to Mecca and he tried to destroy the Kaaba. What happened is that he came on his elephants, of course, Ashab al-Fil, right? Fil elephants. And then the birds came and then they completely destroyed the birds. I mean, the birds came and they completely destroyed the army. That's the short version of the story. That rings any bells, right? So short version, long version, up
The
to
long version was up.
you.
Because you get a lot of like of the short version. I heard a lot. I don't know what the details are.
Okay. Long version is in mentioned by Mufti Shafi Saab, which is basically what I'm reading off. It's much, bro. This Tashil, he mentioned like a pages worth of information. Mufti Shafi got like five, two, three, four, five, 5.5. Okay, anyways, okay, fine. Let's go through long version. Hopefully, it doesn't disappoint you, Hazrat. Surah Al-Fil, the elephant. The surah in Makki has 5 verses. Okay. ألم ترى كيف فعل ربك بأصحاب الفيل. ألم ترى. Have you not seen? ترى, this is referring to واحد, right? It's a ترى واحد حاضر, مذكر, right? That have you, oh Nabi sallallahu, have you, okay? It's not jama. Have you, referring to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, have you not seen how your Lord has dealt with the people of the elephant? ألم ترى كيف فعل ربك بأصحاب الفيل? That فعل ربك, how your Lord has dealt with, how your Lord has dealt with the أصحاب الفيل, the people of the elephant. Have you not seen? يعني ألم تعلم. So now, why is Tara being brought here? I'll get to the story in just a second, but why is Tara being brought here? Of course, as you guys are probably very are aware of this, is that this was the year when Abraha tried to pull up and destroy the Kaaba. This was the year that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was born in. So now they call it the Am Fil, the year of the elephant. One thing that I remember when I was teaching Maktab and I was explaining the story to my kids, I think it was like 2021. So then I was trying to explain to them the concept of how instead of having like numbers and keeping track of like how we do 1980, 1981, 1982, right? I was explaining to them that big events kind of became like benchmarks in time. Then I asked them, so what do you guys think 2020 would be called? They're like, oh, COVID. That makes sense. Okay. 2 years after COVID. Everyone knows what time that is and stuff. Or like 4 years after COVID. Okay, so that's how I explain it to them. So that's a similar thing over here. So now the Am Fil, it's Qurtubi mentioned, what was it, 40 or 50 days after Abraha came and he was destroyed. That's when Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was born. So it was in this year that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was born. Um, what was I saying? Alam, so why is Alam Tara being brought? So now Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam obviously didn't see this. Alam Tara? No. Tara as in Ru'ya, did he see this? No, he did not. But it's showing the shuhra of the incidents that everyone understood, like everyone knew that this incident took place, and because it's so like ma'loom, because it's so widely accepted and understood that this event happened, it's as if he's seen it. Okay. Um, Okay, what else was I going to say? No, I was reading off of this. So the subject matter of the surah refers to the story of the people of the elephant who came with an army of elephants for the purpose of destroying the house of Allah Ta'ala in Makkah. But their plan backfired and the divine scourge overtook them. Allah Ta'ala destroyed them with a flock of ordinary birds. When did the event take place? This event took place in the very year in which the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was born in Makkah, according to some traditions and the popular view among the historians, Ibn Kathir. As Ibn Kathir mentioned, the scholars of Hadith have taken this event as a special type of mu'jiza of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Okay, Mu'jiza, as you guys know, is a term for a miracle at the hands of a prophet. When a miracle takes place at the hands of a wali, a Sufi, or someone, it's called a karama, which in reality it's just the only reason that the Sufi is getting this karama is because of his belief in Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So it's really just adding on to the prophetic and um, sidq, the truthfulness of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Anyways, so mu'jiza. Okay, but the term mu'jiza is, in its sense, refers to an abnormal event shown by Allah Ta'ala to prove the claim of a prophet to having been sent by him. Okay, so the mu'jiza is a sign, an abnormal sign that takes place at the hands of someone claiming prophethood to show that I am truthful in my claim that God has sent me. Make sense? Now, this is something that took place before the birth of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. This took place many, 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 many decades before Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam forgot his first revelation. So is it appropriate to call it a mu'jiza? He has a discussion here. Basically, there's another word called irhas. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing that correct. It's my first time hearing this word too when I make mutala for this. Irhas, or it's irhas. I'm not sure what it is. It might not even be ha. It could just be soft ha. But anyways, basically just like what these sort of miraculous events are called, which didn't take place at his hands and didn't take place after his claim of prophethood, but they're just like kind of the introduction or like paving the way to show that a great individual is about to step up and be introduced to the world. That's one thing that he mentions over here. Story of the people of the elephants. Dude, this is long, dude. We got 12 minutes. All right, let's see if we can do this. Ibn Kathir, the leading authority on prophetic tradition and history, recounts the story as follows. Okay, so Ibn Kathir, very, very authoritative. Yemen was under the control. I'll try to go through it a little bit fast. If I'm mumbling or you can't understand me, please just let me know and I will go back and repeat. Yemen was under the control of the rulers of Himyar. They were idolaters. Their last king was Dhu Nuwas. An idolater himself was the enemy of the righteous Christians of his time who believed and worshipped one Allah. He persecuted the believers who were opposed to idol worship by burning them alive. Most scholars agree that he killed in cold blood by throwing about 20,000 sincere and righteous Christians in his city into a large fire pit, burning them alive in an effort to have them give up their sincere religion. This is the story of the people of the fire pit referred to in Surah Buruj. Two men somehow managed to escape from him. They fled to Syria and took refuge with Caesar, the Caesar, who was himself a Christian and the emperor of Syria. They requested the emperor to avenge this cruel act of Abu Nuwas, and Caesar wrote to the Najashi, the Negus, the king of Abyssinia, now Ethiopia, who was closer to the home of the man. Najashi, he sent two governors with him, Arbat and Abraha, along with a huge army. The army invaded Yemen and freed the whole country from the possession of Himyar. Zunawas tried to escape but was drowned in the sea and died. Yemen thus became part of the Abyssinian dominion and Abraha was appointed its viceroy. SubhanAllah. However, he and Arbat fought each other until Arbat was eventually killed and Abraha emerged victorious. Let me just this I'm reading from Mufti Shafi's Ma'arif al-Quran. So if you want to follow along, that's just basically the first couple of like the second or third page of Surat al-Fil. So Arbat, his co-governor that was sent with him by Najashi, he killed him. Later, Abraha killed him. The latter was appointed the commander of the Abyssinian army in Yemen and the governor of that region. Having captured Yemen, he built a superbly luxurious cathedral in his area. The purpose was to attract the people of Yemen to make pilgrimage to this cathedral instead of the Kaaba in Mecca. It was huge and tall, so that the person standing at the bottom was not able to see the top. He decorated the structure with gold, silver, and other precious gems. In short, he meant it to be an architectural masterpiece, second to none, or unsurpassed in the world, to be revered by all, and to divert the pilgrims who were going to Mecca to rather come to his place. He did this after he witnessed the love of the and enthusiasm of the Yemeni Arabs, which were the same as those felt all over the Arabia for the Kaaba, with the aim of making them forsake their attachment to the mosque of the Kaaba and turn them to his place. Thus, he claimed in his kingdom that no one shall ever visit the Kaaba and that the pilgrimage and Hajj and Umrah should take place around his cathedral. Although the Arabs were idol worshippers, the love and reverence for the religion of Ibrahim alayhi salam and the Kaaba had permeated their hearts. As a result, the Adnan, Qahtan, and Qurayshi tribes were enraged and infuriated by this proclamation. One night, someone entered the church and defecated in it. According to other narratives, a nomadic tribe halted near the church and started a fire for their own needs. The wind on that day was blowing violently, and the cathedral caught on fire and sustained much loss. When Abraha came to know about this and he learned that a Qurashi had done it, he swore he was going to go to the Kaaba and destroy it stone by stone. Thus, he prepared himself and he set out with this huge army and to make sure that no one was going to stop him. He asked for the Najashi's permission and he permitted him and he sent for him and what he permitted him and sent for him, particularly for this expedition, a special elephant whose name was Mahmud. Okay, then the elephant, this huge, it was unusually huge in size and powerful in strength, that which was never seen before. So the name of this elephant was Mahmud. The king of Abyssinia sent in 8 more elephants as reinforcements. And of course, the reason that he had asked for the Mahmud was so that, like, you just crush the Kaaba, basically. Um, they planned to do this by fastening chains to the pillar of the Kaaba and then placing the other ends around the neck of the elephant. That way you could just tear it all down. So now when the Arabs, and especially the Qurashi Arabs who were living in Mecca, they heard about the Abraha's expedition and his plan and his plot, they considered it their moral obligation to defend the sacred house and thwart the evil plans of the conspirators. Thus, the Arabs raised a large army under the command of Abu Nafr, a Yemeni Arab. He called the Arabs to go to war against Abraha and fight in defense of the sacred house so that the enemy is unable to tear it down. The people responded to him readily and entered into battle with the enemy, but he defeated them. This was due to Allah Ta'ala's will that no human should protect his house and his intent to expose the enemy to embarrassment and venerate the sacred sanctuary to the highest degree. Zu Nafar was captured and taken prisoner. The army continued on its way until it came to the settlement of, excuse me, of Banu Khatham. Their leader, Nufail bin Habib, led his entire tribe against the army, but they were too defeated, and Nufail was taken prisoner. But they too were defeated. So Abraha at first decided to kill him, but at second thought, he forgave him and took him as a guide to show him the way to Makkah, basically. When the army approached Ta'if, the people of Thaqif went out to Abraha. They wanted to pacify him because they had heard about they had heard about the fate of those who had resisted him previously. Also, they were afraid that he would demolish their temple that they had made for their idol Lat. Lat comes up in the Quran as well, Surat al-Najm. What's the ayah? It literally says the name. أفرأيتم اللات والعزى ومناة الثالثة الأخرى لكم الذكر وله الأنثى. Okay, so and then there's also a narration of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. I remember Mufti Sahib has shared with us a picture. Someone has shared with us that there's a narration of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam which he said that there's going to come a time in which this Lat and Uzza are going to be worshipped in the Arabian Peninsula once again. This has nothing to do with the story, by the way. It's just randomly coming up right now. That Lat and Uzza will once again be worshipped in the Arabian Peninsula. So then a couple of weeks ago, someone had sent a Twitter post of some museum buff person that said that we were able to find the relics of these idols, Lat Uzza, and they have them like there to like showcase in the museum or whatever, somewhere in the peninsula, like one of the museums. So هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون. Um, there's a lot of stuff happening now that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam prophesied. Dr. Shadi was talking about it in one of his podcasts. Um, we don't need to get into that right now. So he told them that he won't destroy their idol, their temple that they had for Lat. He was compassionate to them, and they sent a guide with him by the name of Abu Rigal. Can't tell what the Arabic names are sometimes when they type it in English. So that's like Righal. Okay, whatever. When they arrived in the place called al-Maghmas near Mecca, they settled there. This is a pasture where the camels. Okay, now this is, I guess, pretty cool. Um, where'd it go? This was the pasture where the camels of the Quraysh grazed. So now they're getting really, really, really close. Okay, they're in Maghmas. This is where the people of Quraysh would take their camels to graze on the vegetation over there. Um, Abraha sent his troops to capture the camels and other grazing animals of the Meccans, and they were able to do so. They also drove away about 200 camels of Abdul Muttalib, the grandfather of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and who was also the leader of the Quraysh. Abraha then sent his emissary Hanata al-Himyari to enter Mecca and bring to him the leader of the Quraysh. He mandated him to convey to the leader of the Quraysh his message that the king did not come to fight with the Meccans unless they stood in his way of destroying their sacred sanctuary. Arriving in the city, this Hanata, he went to Abdul Muttalib and he told him what Abraha said. And he said, Abdul Muttalib replied, by Allah, we too have no desire to fight him, nor do we have the might to do so. This is the sacred sanctuary of Allah Ta'ala, built by his friend, built by the Khalilullah, Ibrahim alayhi salam. If he wills to prevent Abraha from pulling it down, he'll protect it. And if he wills, and if he allows him to approach it, by Allah, we have no means to defend it. So Hanata told him, come with me to Abraha. Then, when Abraha saw him, he was highly impressed because Abdul Muttalib was very handsome, charming, and had an attractive personality. He descended from his throne and sat with the ladder on a carpet on the ground. He then said to his interpreter to ask him, what do you need? Abdul Muttalib said to the interpreter, I want my 200 camels back. This is like, when you hear these stories, you're like boss moments, this what how he handles this. He's like, I want my 200 camels back, that your soldiers stole from me. Abraha told his interpreter to relate to him, when I first set my eyes on you, I admired you greatly and had great respect for you. But all that is now lost. You speak only of your 200 camels, which you fully know um, well, which you fully well know that I have come to tear. When you, oh, sorry. You only speak of your 200 camels when you fully know that I have come down to tear your Kaaba, which is the embodiment of your religion and the religion of your forefathers. You did not even say a single word to persuade me to spare it. Abdul Muttalib calmly responded, I am the owner of my camels and I am concerned about them. I'm not the owner of Allah Ta'ala's house. The master of the house knows how best to protect his house. Abraha rudely rebuffed, your God cannot protect it from me. Abdul Muttalib made a I don't know what that word is. He made a snappy comment back at him. I'm assuming from context. They do as you like or take your chance. According to other narratives, there were other chiefs of Quraysh with Abdul Muttalib at this time of negotiation. They proposed to Abraha that if he withdrew from the sanctuary, the entire region of Tihama would pay him a third of their agricultural produce annually as a tribute. But he turned down the offer. He then came back to Abdul Muttalib's camel. He then gave back Abdul Muttalib's camel to him. Abdul Muttalib took the camels and went home, ordering his people to leave Mecca and seek shelter at the top of the mountains. As you guys know, the like around Mecca, it's um yeah, there's mountains that they were able to retreat to. That way, they could be safe from the army. Yeah, I got 1 minute. Still okay, bear with me. We might go to like 9:05. Okay, I apologize. Let me just read a little bit faster, inshallah. I feel like I'm doing my kid voice of like, you know, doing this is how I read to my kids in class with of just like trying to keep them entertained, keep them. I apologize if it's like demeaning or anything. Okay, he turned down the offer. He gave him his camels. They dipped. They went to the mountains. Then he went with a few figures of the Quraysh sacred sanctuary. He held the metal ring of the door of the Kaaba and prayed to Allah and prayed and asked Allah Ta'ala to give them victory over Abraha and his army. While hanging on the ring of the Kaaba's door, he earnestly implored, we have no strength to face the army of Abraha, so, O my Lord, defend your Kaaba. Having so prayed in all earnestness, Abdul Muttalib led all the Meccans to the neighboring mountains because they were convinced that Allah's scourge would overtake Abraha and his troops. Basically, they understood, like, you're not going to be able to do anything. Allah Ta'ala is about to send his adab now. Just like how he did to Thamud, to Ad, and to all these different people. Like, you're like you're next. Like I'm gonna add your like we can add your name to that list, and so they left. That is the reason why they spoke to Abraha about their camels and at the house of Allah Taala. When the next morning dawned, Abraha prepared to enter the sacred city of Mecca. He prepared the elephant named Mahmud and mobilized his army, and they turned the elephant towards the Kaaba. At that moment, Nufail bin Habib, whom Abraha had captured earlier, approached it and stood next to it, and taking it by its ear, he said, "Return safely where you came from, because you are verily in the sacred city of Allah." Then he released the elephant's ear, and it knelt down and sat down forthwith. The elephant drivers exerted all their efforts to persuade the elephant to enter the city, but their efforts were in vain. This is like, you have your, like, it's game seven of the finals, and MJ decides to sit down on the bench. Like, okay. They tried striking it with a large iron spears and putting iron arrowheads in its trunk. They beat it on its head with axes and used hook staffs to pull it out of its resistance and make it stand, but it refused. So they turned it towards Yemen, and it rose and walked quickly. It understood. ولكن لا تفقهون تسبيحهم. Right? Allah Ta'ala says that every single thing makes a tasbih of Allah Ta'ala. ولكن لا تفقهون تسبيحهم. But we don't understand how, what exactly is their tasbih. I remember one of our teachers, he mentioned that I have a feeling he was talking about himself, because sometimes um, I have a feeling he was talking about himself. One of our teachers, he said one time my friend, he walked out the masjid, and he prayed Fajr, and he sat there till Ishraq doing zikr, probably doing like that Jishti stuff. And then he walked outside the masjid, and he just kept hearing zikr going on all around him, to the extent that he could hear his hair doing it. He got scared, so he ran back inside the masjid. He started making dua that, like, or whatever. That was a whole story that he said. But I have a feeling that that was our ustad that he's talking about himself. Anyways, what was I saying? Yeah, so the elephant, when he was facing the Kaaba, it sat down. When it was turned around to go back home, it got up in it very easily, started walking. So they tried turning it in every which direction, and it would walk in that direction. But when you had it face Mecca, it would kneel down and it sat. It would kneel down and sit down. This was one aspect of the manifestation of the divine power. Only like a page left, not even, um, unfolding itself miraculously. On the other hand, some flocks of birds were seen coming from the sea. Each bird carried three pebbles the size of gram seeds or lentils, tiny, tiny, like literally tiny, tiny. Okay, um, like dude, dal, bro. Have you guys seen dal? The little. Okay, chota. Each bird carried three pebbles, one in each claw and one in its beak. Okay, that's three. He says one in each claw and two in its beak, but the math ain't mathing. According to Waqidi's narration, the birds looked unusual, which were never seen before. They looked smaller than pigeons, and their claws were red in color. Yeah, there was some ikhtilaf, not ikhtilaf, but like different sifat and different qualities that were mentioned about these birds. Um, well, one of the opinions was even that these were we say, like the archetypical phoenix that's always brought up in like myth. That was like one of the things that was brought up, but not like literally, but just like that the birds were just sounding majestic in their nature, and that's all that. They flew. They looked smaller than pigeons. Their claws were red in color. They flew over Abraha's army and pelted them with the pebbles. Each pebble was more devastating than the bullet of a revolver. When it fell on anything, it tore directly through the body and it settled deep in the ground. Seeing this scourge, the elephants fled in panic, except one, which was harmed and destroyed by the pebble. Not all of Abraha's men were destroyed instantly. People escaped in different directions. They died excruciatingly on their way back, as Allah Ta'ala had willed that the most distressful scourge to be afflicted upon Abraha. He did not allow him to die immediately. So Abraha did not die immediately. Allah Ta'ala made him suffer. In fact, Allah Ta'ala afflicted him with a deadly disease, kind of poison spread thoroughly through his body and caused every single part to decay, almost finished. His limbs began to rot and separate from the rest of the body, and he started losing one finger after another. His body was carried back in that state to Yemen. By the time they arrived back to Sana'a, the capital of Yemen, his body was broke down limb to limb until he eventually died. Two of Mahmud's name of elephant drivers, or the two of the drivers of Mahmud, the elephants, they remained in Mecca, but both of them became blind and paralyzed. Muhammad ibn Ishaq reports that Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha narrates that she saw them blind and paralyzed. Her sister Sayyidina Asma radiallahu ta'ala anha says that she saw the two blind and paralyzed men begging. The people of elephants is a momentous event in Arab history, which was witnessed by hundreds of Arabs. It is to this well-known historical incident that this surah refers to. And that's that. I don't know how much more detail that was than what we normally hear. So hopefully that was worth it, inshallah. I definitely needed that reminder.
Exactly. It was a lot more detailed than I've heard. And you did a really nice job, like animating it.
Man, got some practice, dude. Got some practice. Yeah. I remember I did this story with the kids too, I think, at some point. So inshallah. All right, so yeah, we could end here unless there's any questions. Yeah.
Last
So
time I had one question. When you were talking about waiting,
mhm.
you mentioned that it was like it's used to refer to like Jahannam or a negative connotation. But didn't the Arabs at the time like use that when speaking to each other? Like I remember during Tafsir last week, Muftizi mentioned that like a hadith in which Umar radiallahu anhu like said like way back if one of the companions like that he said something bizarre. So like
Yeah.
is
No,
is it like is that like a law or is it like a is this a statement?
yeah, it has different. It doesn't have to always mean just like that wadi fi jahannam. It doesn't always have to be that one thing. But yeah, it's more of just like to how do you say? It's like it's a harf. It's a word to show the displeasure that a person is against like a thing that someone might see or someone might be doing. So it's just like it's also to show that a person's displeasure and you're trying to make the other person aware of it as well. So although yeah, so like Sahaba and even probably other places throughout the Quran, it might not necessarily always be referring to Wadi fi Jahannam. But it is to show for sure, definitely to show like displeasure in a certain action and to make the other person aware of like the wrongful or the karaha, the bad the bad aspect of what they're doing, just to make them like think like, hey, like give it a second thought, like what's going on.
Got it. Exactly.
Yeah, it's also possible that that meaning could have came after Revelation. So whale was obviously it was used before even before like Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and all these different sorts of things. But then the we're also informed that it is the name of a specific place in Jahannam as well. So it could have multiple different meanings. All right. Any other questions? Or you're gonna want to watch the beginning of this video when I post it, Arsalan. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, you'll know what I'm talking about, inshallah.
Right. Inshallah.
Alright. Alright.
Work
سبحان
out.
الله بحمده سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته